So I'll go ahead and record this, Hank, in case you get knocked off.
Yeah, please. I've been knocked off twice already this morning.
Maybe it's the approaching Lunar New Year tomorrow.
I also noticed on my phone app that the solar noon coincides with our clock, 12 p.m., which doesn't happen very often. And I don't want to get into a discussion of why that is, but it deviates by 15 minutes or so, one way or the other, as we go through the solar cycle. When I tried to Google it, all I got was information about solar panels. Obviously, I wasn't using the right question to ask.
Yeah.
Lunar, not.
No, it's a solar noon. When the sun is at its apex, that point in time varies all across the year because of the deviation of the polar axis and its route around the sun. It doesn't have anything to do with the moon.
I think the resolution of that dispute is that it's a lunar calendar. So it is the beginning of the lunar year.
But I think it just happens to coincide this year with solar noon being at 12 noon. That may not happen next year.
Things on lunar calendars tend to drift a little bit around.
As does the sun calendar.
We can't be anywhere near it because the neighborhood is not going wild with firecrackers yet.
It's tomorrow.
Want to welcome Sharon Beckus. Is this your first time on our group, Sharon?
It's my first time online with your group. Yes.
Well, good. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
How'd you find out about us?
Were you a member back in the days when we used to meet in person?
At Wesley, when I went to Wesley, I was a guest. I would go occasionally. And because it was harder to get to by public transit. Because I couldn't walk up, I didn't like walking up the hill from Garnett Avenue.
I don't think anyone really does.
I did a couple of times and I said, that's it.
I remember one time we even had shuttle service.
Yes, you did.
Wesley Palms was run.
You froze.
Hank's been having some technical issues this morning.
Got it.
Sharon, I don't recognize you as being a member, but we'll no problem with that.
I was a guest.
Yeah, these Zoom sessions are open to anybody. If you'd like to be a member, I can send you.
When I was on one of my classes with Senior Planet, Willie was on. And
okay.
Willie said, oh, hey, he started going to Senior Planet. I said, or the senior computer group in Wesley Palms area, but online now. And I said, oh yeah, well, let me join again. So let me take a look. So here I am.
Good.
All right. I said Willie's hard at work, spreading the word.
He is. Good man.
Yeah.
How do you like being online, everyone?
Great.
I love it.
I do
Yeah.
too.
I love it.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly, it's far more convenient for all sorts of people, and we do people from all sorts of places. Hank, are you back in Hawaii now?
I believe he is. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Great.
His microphone is muted.
There we are. Yes, I am. We've been back since Thanksgiving.
All right.
Sharon, are you at Wesley Palms?
No, I'm at the League House in La Jolla, across the street from the White Sands.
Oh, okay, good.
And I could recommend Senior Planet because that's where I met Willie, and they have a lot of classes that they offer on different things, not as fine tuned as yours, but a variety of topics. Like I'm going to something on Instagram, just a little ins and outs of things you might want to, pop in and see about. And they're all free classes.
And it's called Senior Planet.
Seniorplanet.org. I can put the link in the chat.
How do you describe us as fine-tuned?
You're more in depth. And I like that about your group.
Our morning what?
You're more in depth.
In depth.
Oh, more in depth.
You deep dive. And I like that about this group.
Who runs the Senior Planet group?
Well, it's formerly OATS, OATS, Older Adult Training Thing, whatever the acronym stands for. And now AARP is also involved. So there's a lot of classes, and they're generally based back east or the Midwest. So I do join the classes, and I've learned different little things.
Good to know about it.
Sure, and free. Price is right.
And we're happy to hear about them. And if you go and have a class with them,
I
feel
will
free to
mention, I
tell them.
absolutely. And
if
just
it-
like Willie did, I'll spread the word.
That's great, because in some ways, if a senior has got a question about computers, that's part of what our charter is to help them, figure out what's going on.
How do you do that? Do you
We
do
have-
that one-on-one, or what do you do?
We have question and answer time in every session, and there's a few of the members that can give personalized service if you ask them and they have the time and so on.
Via Zoom.
Telephone, Zoom,
Gotcha.
however.
And I noticed when I went to the YouTube channel and I watched one, I did make a comment about it was a meeting, but it wasn't described as a board meeting. And it was a combination of a board meeting plus then a regular meeting combined. That I looked at
yes.
anyway.
Whenever we have a board meeting once a month, the second Saturday.
Yes, and I think you combine it with a regular meeting afterwards because it was like an hour.
We
and a
combine
half.
We combine it with a question and answer session.
Correct. And what I suggested was perhaps putting a timestamp on the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
that
so
particular
your
one.
suggestion, and I haven't figured out how to put a timestamp on a YouTube video.
You go to the part where the meeting begins and you'll see the little code, and you copy it and you paste it into the comment page in the comment section. I mean, whoever administers the channel, YouTube channel, can also put it in the body there.
I do all of this, and I think that's a little too hard for me.
I think you'll
Well-
do it. I think you're savvy enough. You'll do it.
Well, one
Good,
problem
but
is,
it takes
we
it
don't know
takes
how,
actually pasting through the video after it's put on YouTube.
Yeah, there's some ways of editing. I don't know if Willie knows how. I don't know who's on board here this morning that has ever edited any YouTube comments or YouTube description rather.
I have over 100 YouTube videos and 1,000 followers on YouTube, and
And have you edited them?
no.
See, and that's the part that you need to go. That's your next rabbit hole to go down. Apropos to the year of the rabbit.
I'm
Sharon,
not sure what you mean by a time code.
It's called a
Do you mean-
timestamp.
Do you mean to indicate the time at which the board meeting will be over and the discussion starts?
Yes,
Yes.
Is that your intent? Well,
Yes,
frankly, that is not known until after the fact, because the board meeting, as you may be.
yeah, I know, Stanley, and she knows. She is suggesting that I go to through the process of finding when that is in the numbers of minutes through the recording and then posting that somewhere.
My apologies.
And
I still don't know how you can tell when it's
So
over.
far, I'm happy to have any volunteer do that for us,
You need an administrator.
but I'm not, I,
I
I
think
am the administrator. I'm the website owner, the website.
You're the creator.
webmaster. I'm the vice
Creator.
president for programs. I'm the guy who decides when we start every morning, and a few other things. And
So you post it to YouTube, correct?
yes, and I post it to YouTube.
So as a suggestion, I'm not sure, I haven't looked, but as a suggestion on the YouTube, just search on the YouTube discussions about how to edit, how to add a timestamp to a created event. And I'm sure some creators will give you the feedback on that.
If I were married to you, my polite comment.
If you say that again, I gotta hear that one.
I'm not married to you, Sharon.
Sharon, could you share?
Gonna have to
your-
mute everybody out else so that Hank could be heard.
Sharon, could you share your email address in the chat window?
Sure, I can.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, it is 8:37. I'm about to turn this over to Ross for a morning presentation. If Ross is ready, I'm going to mute all, and Ross can unmute himself.
There we go. So I took on the took on the challenge to present on cybersecurity and how to stay safe, not give away a lot of your information. I got a bunch of information from one of the other users in our group who does this, has done this in the past as a business, and is very, very conscious and very, very concerned about giving out any information. If you look into the chat window, there are 2 links in there. The first link is a step-by-step how to secure the settings in Windows 11. Since I don't have Windows 11 on my computer, I can't show how those settings are. But this gives pictures and says, this is how you get there, and this is what they recommend that you do. The second link is from her saying, here are all the different things that she recommends, and very, very in-depth articles as to why and how to do all those things. I don't do all of those things here. One of the issues is that she talks about is make sure that your location services are turned off. I do a lot of buying online from various locations. If I have those location services off, then I have a hard time buying because it's trying to make sure that it has the right address for me. So all of those recommendations you have to take with a grain of salt. If you don't open and look at any email, if you stay off the internet, you don't attach to the internet, you're going to be completely safe. Beyond that, there's exposure. And these links are supposed to help you reduce that amount of exposure. She is very concerned about us giving out any information to a website because of the way that it is sold and then can be used against us. Again, we don't pay for websites. So there has to be some way that this website makes money. And if you block any of that information, then they may say you're not playing by our rules and not allow you to go to that website. I use the incognito mode in the browser that I use, which is Chrome. She recommends Firefox, and she also recommends using the search engine DuckDuckGo. I use Google. There's pluses and minuses to all of those services. I never tell my customers to always use a particular browser or never use a particular browser, because it's dependent upon where you're going and what you're trying to do. I use 4 or 5 different browsers every day. Chrome is my preferred, but again, I use the other ones. Why do I have to use the other ones? Because when you go to a website, it has to interrogate your computer and say, okay, what operating system are you using? What version of that operating system are you using? And what browser are you using? And then it goes and pulls from its archives the information for that particular browser and setup and downloads that. And that's what you see on your screen. Not all of those. So if you go to it with Chrome versus going to it with Edge or going to it with Firefox, you may see slightly different screens and have slightly different functionalities of those web pages. Banks are notorious for that, especially if there's been a new security setting that Microsoft says, okay, from now on, this is what you have to do. Sometimes when you use the Microsoft browser, it won't work on the bank because that bank has not upgraded all of their pages to that. So you have to go back to using the older version of a browser to get your web page to work. Is that an exposure? Yep. But if you have to get there, you have to find some way. And again, to me, it's just kind of like navigating through traffic. I don't like to go that way, but if everything else is blocked this way, then I go that direction. Again, the websites have to come up with ways to pay for things. Extracting data about you is one of those. I have not seen that it's a problem with my information being taken and used against me. Maybe I'm very naive, but I have not seen that as of yet. The settings that she recommends are, I'm sure, very good, well thought settings to use, but I also believe that they're going to have a lot of problems to do your normal internet browser. You're going to have to get used to doing things possibly in a little different way, or saying, I can't use this website anymore because. Now in my system, I also use Malwarebytes. I pay for that. And that sits there all the time. So when I go to visit a website, it interrogates that site and makes sure that they don't find anything really bad on that website. If they do, they won't let you get there. You have to go in and tweak the settings and say, nope, I don't care about what you're telling me. I still want to go there. And I think that's a good security. Of late, I'm getting those kind of pop-ups when I go to CNN, because there are things on CNN's webpage that Malwarebytes is blocking, saying, nope, we're not going to let this operation work. So again, there's lots of pluses and minuses. It can get into the weeds really, really quickly. That's why I think the first link to the B-bomb shows you step by step how to do this in Windows 11 to make it more secure, as far as what this reviewer recommends, to make sure that your information is not going out. Now, when I go in and sign up, like on a new computer, I always try to make sure that if there's any indication in there that says, can we send you advertising? I say, no, don't send me that. Other than that, then I generally allow a lot of the other operations to go. And again, I have not seen where it has cost me, where I have a problem where I have to go back and say, okay, now I need to really go back and block these things, get rid of those operations. Has everybody tried to open up that B-bomb link and see if those things make sense? Okay, David says he's opened it up and looked at it because I think that was what, there was one person that specifically said they wanted to know how to do the privacy and security settings in Windows 11. And that's what I think this link addresses and goes through the step by step. You get those questions when you first set up Windows 11, but this lets you go back into the settings on your computer and change it to say, no, I don't want you to give out my location information. But again, if I turn those on and turn those settings up, then there's a lot of web pages. When I go there saying, you're not playing by our rules, and my ad blocker program does the same thing. I block the ads that I have, and I pay for an ad blocker that seemed to do a pretty good job. But again, also quite often it comes up and says, nope, you can't use that web page because you have an ad blocker. Please unblock our page. When I use the VPN software that I use, the private VPN, it's the same thing. That is supposed to, I go into incognito mode and I turn the private VPN on. Both of those are supposed to stop the information where it can trace back to my location, backtrack to me. I believe that it limits the information that goes out, but it's not 100% secure. There was a old science fiction book that talked about how you can disappear in the world. And it talked about these people that were the characters in there trying to make sure that they could get away and nobody could find them, and how they obscured their information, paying cash, using false addresses when they sign up for services. But their comment was, and I believe it's true, is you can slow people down, but you can't stop them. If you use those same features long enough, someone is going to go through, if necessary, to trace that back and to attach that information to you and know where you are and know what it is you're doing. Again, the only way to be safe from that is to not go on the internet. Stay disconnected. Pay for things cash. Don't connect to a Wi-Fi. Don't connect to anything that was there, because that once you're connected, your information now starts to be flowing out of your computer. It's really difficult to stop, to make sure that you are not traced back to. David.
I would also say it's not just your computer, it's probably your phone as much as anything.
Oh, sure. Okay, so your phone, your tablet, most devices now, your car is a computer in all senses, where it can connect to the internet and starts relaying information back and forth. Tesla cars get updates over Wi-Fi for their software updates to it. So if you can't connect by Wi-Fi with the car, you don't get the software updates. So you have to have that online. They have to be able to identify you through that Wi-Fi. And yes, so on phones, I don't know if it's as much of a problem as it used to be, but you really on a phone, you have to be careful with using your Wi-Fi. Because, and the San Diego airport was one of the places a couple of years ago that was listed as the worst place to go to and connect your phone, your tablet, your laptop, doesn't matter what device, through the Wi-Fi that's there, that's free. Because there are a lot of them that are called evil twins. And what it does is it says, hi, I'm Starbucks. And you sign in and say, okay, here we go. It's not Starbucks. It's somebody else sitting there with a laptop at the airport, and they can see everything that you are using back and forth on your computer. Most things now, if you have a secure connection where you see it says HTTPS in the settings of that web page, that information is secure from the back of your computer to the company that you're going to. If it's not HTTPS, it can be read. And that's what it used to talk about with cable modems, is that someone down the street can see your stream of information that's going back and forth. But again, if I'm using a VPN, I'm connecting first to the VPN, and that information is supposed to be encrypted from the back of my computer to the VPN, and then the VPN then forwards that information through another IP address that they control and then go to where I want. If I, again, with the browser that I use their incognito mode, which limits, I'm not saying it gets rid of all, but it limits the amount of information that is stored and goes across. And, but beyond that, you really have to be careful on what you put out there and to expect that it's not going to be accessible by somebody else.
I see.
Again, there's a lot in those links there to go down through. If there's something specific, I can look at those and say, this is my understanding on there, but I haven't gone down through each link and said, oh, yep, this is different than what I use and what I would recommend. But again, if someone's looking at that, then I can address that individually. Will, you had a question? You're cut off.
The VPN you said you used was called private. Is that correct?
Yeah, just like you asked me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Private.
Okay. I'm just trying to recall.
Could you write
Secondly,
it down for me, please.
I will. Thank you. The other thing is, when you're using VPN, do you also need to use incognito mode?
That's my choice.
Okay.
So it's each one of these things and each one of these links and things out of it's a level, a deeper way to protect yourself. So it's kind of like saying at your home, you have a chain link fence, that's 20 feet high, you have cameras, you have a dog, you have electrified front door. All of these things add a level of security. And so you have to do these things that they recommend, private VPN, incognito with a particular browser. She recommended Firefox and using DuckDuckGo versus where I use Chrome and Google because of the information that's not sold. So each one of those things adds an additional hurdle for the bad guys to try to get information from you.
Okay. A third question though, some sites I go to say we use cookies. Will you allow it? What's your preference on that? Do you allow?
In general, I do. Sometimes they will let you go in and choose those cookies that you want to allow. I see also where that says, do not sell my data. But then again, you're trusting that that website is playing by the rules that they say they are. They don't have to. There's no law regulations that I know of that will really protect you. Now, in the links of where it has all the lots of links in there, it does talk about privacy laws in California. So you do have some recourse, I believe, if you says, okay, I see that my information was taken by this particular website and sold to that particular company, then you have some grounds to go after that company for monies. I would doubt that you're going to have much luck or get much money out of it other than pay the lawyers a lot of money.
Ross, what's the worst thing that a cookie can do to someone?
Well, okay. There were a couple of hands up, but to answer that, worst thing, I don't know. It does what it does is, so like when I go back to Amazon.com, it says, oh, hi, Ross, the last time you were here, you bought these things. That's what a cookie does. It lets that website know who you are. But again, it depends on what they're gathering from you and how they're going to use it against you. So, but again, I in general, a lot, if I'm not too pressed, then I'll say, okay, let me look at those cookies and see which ones they are asking my permission to and which ones I will allow or turn off. But to me, again, there's nothing to say that they have to follow by those rules. You have to just stay, hopefully, with the reputable websites that you hope are not going to do bad things against you. David,
Yes, I just wanted to say that there's a question in the comments from Patricia. And it says, isn't a computer's IP address the same thing as a fingerprint, a unique identifier? And
Well-
that's not quite the same. That's not quite right. Can you talk to that?
well, it is a unique identifier. So when you put out a request, say from your browser that you're looking for a particular piece of information, that request includes your IP address to the internet and your IP address with inside your home network or office network. That way it knows when they get the response back from whoever you asked the information from, it can direct it right back to you. So again, it says this IP address, this particular computer asked for this information and we delivered it. You know, if you might have seen in the news recently with a husband who killed and dismembered his wife, he searched for that on the internet. And they have that information that says that he searched for it in the weeks before his wife disappeared. So, and you can say, well, I'll just go to the library or I'll use my phone at a Starbucks. Doesn't, they can still get you with that information. There are cameras at the library. They can see who's there. You have to check out a computer. So they have to the library card that says computer number 6 was used by such an individual.
It's a bit of a research project, but it's one that can get you the results if you work hard on it.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. You can slow down people getting information and most of them drop off. So it's kind of like saying the old security for home is to turn your front porch light on. So you encourage them to go somewhere else. And you can do all these things that encourage them to say, that's too much trouble. Let me go on to the next person. But again, if they say they're looking for you in particular way, they'll find you.
And also, just while I have here, I put into the chat a link for a little video on how to add timestamps to YouTube videos in case someone here might be interested in doing that. Thank you.
Mr. Saul.
Just a couple things, and on David's last comment, unless he's volunteering, I wouldn't push that. Anyway, cookies have a useful purpose when you're on a website, particularly with the HTTPS. It's a way of knowing that it's you during that session, and so that they don't have to have you re-authenticate repeatedly. So if you're at a bank or credit card website or something like that.
Yep.
Unfortunately, too many organizations go way beyond the use of cookies to identify you. Like Ross was saying, when you come back, they know you've been there before, and they try to use that as security. And so if they don't find a cookie, they will ask to send a validation code to you. Right. And things like that. And I think they're misled, and there's a better way to do security, but I'll end that one. The other thing I wanted to comment on is incognito mode. Most every browser has that feature, but I think some people misunderstand it. And if you go look at that browser's information where it'll describe what that does, all I'm aware of that it does is it doesn't store information in the web browser on your computing device. It isn't that it's more secure while you're online, like if you're not on a VPN, it's not any more secure. It's just that it isn't storing it so that if somebody else is using your computer and comes back to it, it won't have the history of where you went.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. It still has to push that information out that says, here's my question. Here's the website that I went to. And then that can be traced right back to that computer again, even though that it is in incognito mode. So the VPN kind of helps with that because they have that information, and hopefully they will not give that information up when people come and ask them for that information. Most of the time, I'm assuming that they will not re-give that information up. Some places say we never store it, so we don't have it to give up. But I've also seen where if there's been enough pressure from other legal organizations to that website for the VPN software, that they will fess up and say, here's what we have from a particular address. So if they come and say they want to take my IP address that I have from my internet provider and say, what do you have for that? That information is still obtainable. Hank.
I want to just tell everybody of something that I almost did today and why I didn't do it, which probably saved me from a great deal of grief. I want to do this because I think it's a classic example of the way people try to get you and the way that you can remain ungot. When I start my day each day, the first thing I do is go through my email. I get my email service from AOL. And about halfway up through my emails this morning, there was an email titled AOL Changing Service. And I opened that email, and the email said, we are going to be changing our service in 2 days, and you need to upgrade to a new version of AOL. And if you don't, your service will be suspended when we do that upgrade. Until you do, click here to upgrade your service. I didn't do what David did. I did not trigger to that. It looked like AOL. I clicked on the place that it said, click here to update your service. And the first thing I saw when I got there was, enter your AOL password here. That's when I went, oops.
Yep.
Got out of there real fast.
Right. So
And
just like when your
Right.
telephone rings, you really don't know who's on the other side. When
right.
an email comes in, you don't really know who it came from. So if you're getting a request like that, then what I recommend that you do is you don't click on anything in that email. You go to AOL.com and see if there's information there under your account that says, yes, we are going to. Some more information at the link that you use to normally get to AOL. And look for confirmation on that there's a problem with your account at the bank, or that you need to do that update that's there. Be very, very suspicious and assume 99% of those are ways that are trying to trick you into doing something, not believing that they are trying to help you.
And the reason I'm doing this here today is to illustrate that I did save myself because I didn't enter a password.
Right.
When something asks you to enter a password, be very careful.
Or an email address, or a credit card number, or a request to go buy gift cards.
Yep.
All of those things should be really, really big red flags, but they do it because it works.
And interestingly enough, later this morning, I checked my spam folder, and there was another message exactly the same, just like the one that I had been in my regular folder.
So with AOL and a lot of the other companies, if you mark that email as spam, sometimes they'll ask you what kind of spam or why it is you don't want it. And then at the front door to that email service, if they get too many blocks for that email address cannot be used to send emails into AOL. So again, they'll automatically get blocked. Sometimes the bad guys keep coming up with new ways, and they have accounts at all of the email providers and say, let me try it this way. Let me try it that way. Let me try it this way. Oop, this one got through. Now we're going to send that out to a group. So you're right. Careful.
So designate one that you have decided is phishing designated right away as spam to your email provider, and you're helping the world.
Well, again, you're trying to help it, and hopefully the bad guys then are able to find email addresses that they can break into those accounts, and then they use those as their spears to get into your computer, because it's a legitimate email address from a legitimate server, and then they use that to launch their attacks. Mr. Dan. You're still muted, Mr. Dan.
I was trying to figure out how to get unmuted because I'm using this other program here. Okay, what I wanted to go back to is we're balancing convenience against privacy.
Yep.
And I'm always aware of that. And normally I just run my computer and tell it not to do some things like store cookies or whatever. But if I'm going to do something dumb or something that I'm leery of somebody getting some information about, I will use a Linux program that I have on a memory stick, which is an ISO image which never gets changed. And it's not running from your disk drive, it's just running from memory. And it uses a Tor browser. And there was a guy sitting next to me, his phone just went off.
Yes.
And if it asked me if it can store cookies, I say yes, because it has no place to store them except memory, and it's big and all. So
you can put them back on your memory stick, sir. That memory stick is a read-write device.
But it's a ISO image, which you cannot change an ISO image.
I understand what you're saying, that you're launching the program in that way as like an exe. I understand what you're saying. Okay.
And you can make another partition on your memory stick that you can store things in, but I do not do that. So there is no capability of writing anything to that memory stick unless I use the program that created the memory stick to begin with. So I really don't worry about all that. And if I was going to search on ways to dispose of a body, I would use that instead of using Google. But that's another story. I'm not looking to get rid of a body. But that's what the point is, you're balancing security against convenience. And I have my address and password stored in a cookie on my computer so I can go back. And also with Amazon, I leave Amazon on my computer because I can go back and see what I bought previously and stuff like that. And they have my credit card number and other things which could be a danger, but I trust them. And the thing is, whoever you're dealing with here, it's how much do you trust the person you're dealing with?
Okay. All right. So a couple quick things on there before I go to Will. When you are using like Amazon or any place that you buy something on the internet, if you can, my strong preference is to use PayPal, because PayPal electronically transfers the exact dollars and cents of that item that I purchase to that vendor. They do not get credit card information. They cannot go back in it and get more information through my PayPal account. It is only that $12.63 for something that I bought from mainland China but that vendor in mainland China cannot come back through my PayPal account and get any more money from me. On your bank accounts and credit cards, you need to check with your bank, but everyone that I've seen on a normal commercial credit card, debit card, checking account, if it's non-business, that the bank will give you your money back, even if they themselves were hacked and that information was taken. If it's a business account, you have one business day to tell the bank that money was taken by fraud. After that, there's all bets are off. But you have to be really careful on there and make sure your services that you use for payment have a way for you to say, contest that information and get it back.
Yes, I recognize that danger there, but like I said, I seldom use that, and the two people that have my credit card account are Walmart and Amazon, I guess.
Yep. I think on Amazon, I'm seeing more and more places accept PayPal. And I'm trying to go more to that. And then with PayPal, you can say, I'm going to deposit $500 at my PayPal account, use this credit card, use that bank account, and you can change those options every time that you go to purchase and say, this time I want it to come out of this pot, that pot, next time I want to have it come out of that pot. You can change that all the time. So I'm liking PayPal more and more.
Well, as my memory fails, I'm having great difficulty keeping all that stuff straight, so I hesitate to get in any deeper than I am.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mr. Dan?
I think that's it, except for one thing I read in the paper about Amazon. Amazon Smile is going away.
Yep.
1st of February.
Yep. Yep. They said that no one used it enough for them to continue to support that service. So they are going away from that. So
we'll lose a little bit of income, a couple of pennies a day.
Yep.
So.
All right, Mr. Will.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Do you find that VPN slows down your system at all?
Most of the time, no. I don't see it. Can, depending on the speed, because now I'm saying route my information from the back of my computer to wherever it is I choose. And there's 50 to 100 locations I can choose to say, put it to New Mexico, put it to Hawaii, put it to Canada, wherever I choose to say, take my information and push it that way. Now, if there's a hiccup somewhere, just like on the freeways, that particular link being slow, yes, I can see where it slows down. But I really have not seen that it is any kind of a problem for me.
Okay, thanks. Second thing, I'm seeing new scams coming through in invoices that look very, very real.
Sure.
The way that you can tell that they're scams, the way I tell is when you look at the payment method, it usually indicates a debit card or something, which I don't have. But be very careful when you see invoices. I see them from the Geek Squad. I see them from a couple other places, but it's new. I haven't seen those before.
Yeah, they're doing that, and you'll get them from McAfee. You'll get them.
Yeah, McAfee, right.
All these places that you recognize the names, and I believe that they actually are coming. So let's say you had McAfee or you had Norton at one time. I think the sales departments are going back through and are being told to re-invoice all these people for a new copy of that antivirus program, even though you're not using it. They don't really care if you're using it or not. They want the revenue. So yes, I would be very careful. Like I said, expect that 99% of that information that's coming in is a false, and they're trying to just scam you. Now,
these appear to be coming from India, from the names that are on the email sender.
I understand what you're saying, but again, the ones I've looked at, they still look to me legitimate from that particular company. And you just have to be careful to say, I'm not paying that because I don't have that service, and assume that you don't have it versus say, oh, this is something I have to have because I really need to have it. And they're warning me that the world's going to fall apart if I don't give my credit card number. The other side is once you give out a bank account, credit card, debit card, checking account to the bad guys, you have to get a new account number. You have to throw the old account number away. Just getting your money back for those transactions will not help you, because they can still go back in and build that particular account number through another email address or vendor number. You have to get a new one. So then I have people complain and saying, but I have all these automated payments set up on this account from the bank. So I suggest to them that when you go to get your new, close the old account, and then you get 2 accounts, credit card, checking, whatever you use, and you use one for your automated payments, and you do that to Costco, Macy's, whatever your normal ones that you use for your automated payments. And then you get a second card that you use when you go to the gas station, when you go to the market, when you go out to dinner. And that's the one that will more than likely be hacked, because you're using it at various places that can be hacked easier. And then if you get hacked, again, it's so much easier for you to turn that one card off. I talked to a lady yesterday. She says, I don't know if my bank will let me have 2 cards. I said, well, you can have one for you, or you can have one for your husband, or you just go to a different bank. Banks will give you credit cards, especially if you say, I need to have one for $1,000 or something, and you use that for your miscellaneous transactions.
Oh, in this same question, Fran or someone asks, if I keep getting these invoices, should I change my email address? I don't think so.
You can. That's kind of like saying, I'm getting too many spam phone calls, I want a new telephone number. Then you have to let everybody know that this is my new account. AOL seems to be pretty good with it. Gmail is very good with sorting out and saying, these are spam and these are legitimate. So, and I have people that say, well, I look at my spam folder and I find all these things that are junk in there and I don't want them. Well, they're in your spam. Your email provider has decided that these are junk. Don't even pay any attention to those. Just delete them. Once your email address gets out, once your name gets out, 2 or 3 times a month, I get an email from Will Wakely that says, look at these pictures. And it is, I can see it's not from Will, but your name is being used. So even if you get a new email address, they can still use the same name on that account that says this is who this person is. So
So you don't see the naked ladies I send you, do you?
No, sir. Willie.
Yeah, I had a question about your comment about malware bytes and blocking CNN. Does it start at the domain level, or if it already accepts you getting into some website at the domain level and you go deeper into the site, does it catch if you're going to a?
So it's looking for information that's coming, so that when they go to request information from my computer, that's what Malwarebytes looks at and says, I'm going to block this particular type of service. And again, it does not block CNN, and I get to CNN, but it is still saying that there's something there that they don't like and they're going to block it. And I said, okay. And then if I do that enough, or I'm having trouble getting to a website, then I may go into Malwarebytes and say, no, that's okay, I will let it go in. But most of the time, I just let Malwarebytes handle it lets me get the CNN. It may give me a few pop-ups saying there's some activity we don't like and we're going to block that. And I say, oh, and I just let it do it. but it does not, I can go in and say by IP address or by CNN.com, I can add that to the exclusion list in Malwarebytes.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm not seeing any other particular questions that are there. For timestamp, IP address, never click on links in emails. Yes, I would agree with that. You have to be very careful with anything that's coming from. Assume that it's bad. As I tell people, it's like someone's knocking at your door at 3 o'clock in the morning. Who is this person? It's Bob. I know a Bob, but why are you here at 3 o'clock in the morning? So just be very, very cautious. Charging station safe, okay. Well, when you plug in your phone into a USB, yeah, it can have provide information across that USB cable about your phone where it automatically hooks up. But you can change the settings in your phone that says don't do that. You know, it only can go with this particular location, or you have to give me a pop-up that says, do I want to allow that type of information to go through my phone, through my data charging cable? Invoices, yeah, that's notorious on there. With businesses, what has been coming more of a problem is that they were able to hack into the email of somebody in the accounting department that handles invoices, sending and receiving invoices, and they're able to mask and say they're the person that sends out that invoice to another company. And in that email, they say, we have a new online service for you to data transfer your do the bank transfers this way. And when they do that, that money is transferred from your bank account to another offshore bank account. And it's really difficult to get that monies back. For businesses, again, you've got one business day to let the bank know that information has been stolen. And within 1 day, they're supposed to be able to get that monies back, claw it back. Beyond that, but that's again for businesses. Mr. Dan. Dan, you're still blocked, sir.
Okay.
There you go.
Last week I talked about Chat GPT, and Hank asked me to try to look into some of that.
Okay.
Chat GPT, I think, does not have enough computer power at this time to talk to all the people that are trying to talk to it. Because I was getting various messages, sometimes 404, site not found.
Yep.
And when I did finally get to the site, it said it was trying to verify that I had a secure connection.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get much further than that. So I've just read items in the newspaper, and is getting more and more stuff about Chat GPT. It's even getting into the comic strips. So I think too many people are trying to access it right now.
Dan,
something to watch.
Dan, I took your suggestion to heart and did some searching, and I think I have found enough videos on YouTube and elsewhere about ChatGPT that I will run it as a subject one of these weeks.
Okay, that would be nice. Like I said, I had a very difficult time trying to access anything about it. Not the information about it, but trying to get to it, to try it out. And they just don't have enough horsepower at this time.
So I want to wrap the presentation up, and if there are the Will and Stan, are your questions about my presentation, or are they general questions?
Mine's about your presentation.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Just wondering,
ChatGPT.
does it make sense to start your password with a special character since it's one of the high ASCII numbers. It would seem to me when they do a brute force breaking, they start with the lowest ASCII number and work through it. So if you start your password with a high ASCII number, does that slow them down?
No,
Okay.
they're using a computer to try to address and break that account. That's why you will see when you type in your password a couple times wrong, they will say, we're going to block this account. You know, you had too many times, you have to contact us directly, or you have to wait 3 hours or whatever it is. That blocks those brute force accounts. Now, having uppercase, lowercase, numbers, a special character, all of those adds to the combination. 15 characters right now is what I'm recommending or more, and a combination thereof. Trying to get those special characters, try to get those passwords in is really difficult for us. And to keep those updated, because when the website says, okay, now you need to change the password. Nope, that's too close to your last one. You have to do something different. To me, that's when you need a password manager, and you let that password manager update that password. And so it can be 25 characters long, completely unintelligible as far as having any words or numbers or sequences that are in there, which again forces you to have to use a password manager.
Well, when I look at combinations, just 4 or 5 characters, you're working through about 40 characters. That works out to, if a 50% chance of getting it, to about 2 million chances. But again, don't they have to test every one that they do?
Sure they do, but they're using their computer against the bank's computer, whomever. And so they just keep pounding away. They can do for hours using huge computer systems to create numbers. Yes, does it take a long time to get through? The more characters you have, the longer it takes. So again, at this point, from what I read, 15 characters is a good way to start, with an uppercase, a lowercase, a number in there, where you can say, I'm going to have 6 special characters that are in there. In the ASCII character set, there's 256 characters. We only have 10 across the top of the screen. You can put those other hash marks, special characters, a character in there like Hank showed us this week that is a non-standard character set, but it's there. So to put that in, you have to do 2 or 3 keys and type that. That's what takes a while for us to put it in there, but it's nothing for the computer to put it in there.
And Will, I think you answered your own question in your example of 4 to 5 characters. Password strength is based on the length of the password. The longer, the better.
Right.
I don't understand that, Saul. It seems to me that
a 26 character password is going to beat any 5 character password.
I know, but a 5 character password where you're working with 40 different characters works out to 4 million tries.
You do the math.
Yes, but how long does it take for each time for the computer to generate that and test it? Which is a very short period of time.
It has to test it. And how many tests are the websites going to allow?
Not winning this one, Will.
Not at all. You should research that and see what the recommended computer password length is. And you will see this is the way they do it. They have special cards, just like with the Bitcoin computers, that they use specifically to generate passwords and pound against all the accounts. There is not somebody there saying, gee, I think it might be password or variation thereof, and I'm going to type those in and see each one and wait for that information to come back to see if it lets me get in. It's all automated, has been for years and years. All right, so Stan, you had a question with GPT. Dan, your
actually,
question?
Fran has her hand up, then.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I do see it up over there. Excuse me.
Okay. Quick question. If I'm getting spam messages on my iPhone
Yep.
that seem to come from my, that, and they know where I bank. Do I have to change my phone number, or are they just randomly sending these out?
Are they coming in on text messages?
Yeah, like a text message, yeah.
I would talk to your bank to begin with on there. So it's coming in from a phone number. If it's coming in on a text message.
Right, and it's, well, often it is something like, click here and, to activate this auto deposit, which I don't do. And I try to even delete it before I even open it. But if somebody has my phone number and is sending me those messages, and say they're different ones, maybe they're not all related to my bank, does somebody have my phone number specifically, or is the computer just robo dialing everywhere?
Yes and yes.
Do I
So-
need to change my phone number?
So the robo dials, it doesn't really matter. They're just saying, here's an area code. Let's just keep pounding against those area code with text messages. Now, on Verizon, I know I can block telephone numbers and text messages that come from a particular number. That slows that down. But the bad guys can rent telephone numbers for a day and then use that as a phone number that's from your area code, close to your numbers, and start pounding away at you. If you're getting too many of those, then yeah, the only other thing that you can do is get a new number, but that's not to say that that number can get out some other way. You have to be careful about where you provide that number to somebody.
Thank you.
Stan, you had GPT, Dan?
Yeah, I found it fascinating that something in AI that I just heard about no more than 2 weeks ago, that is Chat GPT, has struck the fancy of the press and TV and sitcoms, particularly comic pages. Dilbert has a whole string of cartoons depicting GPT chat situations. I think that's fascinating that particular aspect of AI is hitting such a chord of public reaction. Any other comments on that?
Well, first of all, please, I wanted to see if I can finish up my presentation and then turn this over to Will. So if there's,
That's why I said it was about GPT. So place it wherever you want.
are there any more particular questions on the presentation that I made this morning? If not, then I'm going to turn it over to Will.
Dan has his hand up.
Go ahead, Dan.
First thing I want to say is computers speak binary. So it doesn't matter if it's uppercase, lowercase, or special character or whatever. And the second thing is the length of the password is the main thing that stops them from cracking it. But the other thing is whoever wrote the password manager for the facility that you're talking to is the person you have to get on, because they can allow them to unlimited access, or they can limit you to 5 tries or whatever. But that's all in control of the password manager on a computer that you're trying to talk to. So they're the people that have the problem. And also the other situation there is when someone's writing a program, they get these subroutines, and the password manager is usually a subroutine that they just import from somewhere else, and they don't write that. So they get whatever they get. So that's where we are. We're looking at a computer program that is patched together with a lot of little subroutines. One of them is the password manager. And if it's not a very good password manager, somebody's going to figure out your password and get into that facility, whatever it is. That's all I had to say. And then also the requirement for a special character or a specific length or whatever you put in there, all that comes from the password manager also. So all that's a function of the program that someone has written. And there's lots of those programs floating around out there. Some of them are very good. Some of them are not too good. Some of them are really bad. So that's where we are. And there's two ways to crack a password. One is to try to guess what you use as a password. And it's, unless somebody knows you pretty well, they're not going to know your kid's name or your wife's name or things like that, personal information. So they can't use that. And the other way is to just keep incrementing the field that you're putting in there and see if it'll finally hit on something. And that again requires a lot of passes.
That's why I say start it with a special character and you're starting with the highest binary number.
That doesn't make any difference, Will.
Well, don't they start the search with a certain binary number, Dan?
Gentlemen, would you please stop arguing this point?
Okay.
You're wasting other people's time.
The search is binary. So you look at binary, then yeah, you've got to go through 16.
Dan, would you please stop arguing this point? Let's move on.
Okay.
Okay. We turn it over to anyone who has a question on any subject except what we've already talked about this morning, because that horse is dead.
Well, Fran did post a question in the chat indicating that she uses her own USB adapter to charge her phone when she's in a public place to to avoid the risk of somebody using somebody else's USB port.
Yep, that's a good thing to do.
And also that there's two kinds of USB cables. There's charge-only cables and there's data cables. I think if you're using a charge-only cable, you're going to be safe because that's only connecting the power pins, it's not connecting the data pins.
Does it make a difference what adapter you're using? I don't understand how that causes you any problems.
So again, as David was mentioning, there's two different types of wires. One that's a full data cable, and the other one that's a charge only cable. If you're
I was just referring to the adapter.
Can I finish, please, sir?
Sure.
Thank you. Again, there's two different types of wires. One that has 2 wires and one that has, I believe it's 8 wires in there. If you're using the one that only has 2 wires, then no data can be transferred. It can only be used for charging. What the question from Fran is if she uses her own plug in the wall AC adapter to USB, then she's not allowing someone else to have access to the information in her computer. That's the USB device that you plug in the wall, not into the phone.
But does the data go out through the adapter? I thought the adapter was strictly a power source.
If you use somebody else's cable adapter and you go to a place that has, say, here we have a free Wi-Fi, free phone charger, and you plug into that your phone, you can give them access to all the information in your phone. If you use your adapter that plugs into the wall, then they can't get access to your information through that cable.
I thought the adapter was strictly power, not data.
Will, I think what Fran's pointing out is an example would be if you're in an airport. They have USB ports that you can connect your device and cable to and recharge it Or she's saying you could go to an electrical outlet in the airport, plug in her own AC adapter and charge her phone that way.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
And my point was, if you used your own power only cable, you're probably safe even using the ones that plug into the wall. You have no idea what's on the other side of that wall, except if you've not connected any of the data lines, it's not going to get any data.
Yes, and a USB cable is a maximum of 4 wires.
Yeah.
It's data plus, data minus, ground, and 5 volts.
Yeah, that's for a standard USB cable. There's USB-Cs that have a lot more wires in them for power control and other things, but your standard USB cable has power, ground, data plus, data minus.
That's for USB 2. USB 3 required more wires.
Okay.
I'm sorry, would you explain a charge only cable?
It just has 2 wires in the cable, one for positive, one for minus on the DC power.
And how do we know we have one?
It would have to be specified on the cable.
Okay,
Likely don't.
okay, thank you.
When you say you go to Amazon and say, I'm going to buy a cable, then you look for charging only cables.
Okay,
But again, you have to be real careful with that, because you can't look at a cable itself and see whether it's a data charge or data or power only. Fran's idea of having her own charger is much, much, much safer. Or
Right.
you have an additional battery that you take with you that charge
right,
it.
a power bank.
What I can say is, though, that more now, the phones last a lot longer than they used to. So it's not as much of a problem to say I've only got the battery that's in my phone. Most of the phones now will last a couple days with the charge that's in there.
Thank you.
I'm jumping the gun on people who have their hands up, but it's because someone just asked this question. If you already have a cable and you want to know whether it's power only or data and power, plug it between your phone and your computer, and then look on your computer's Windows page, the page that shows you everything that's in your computer. And if the phone shows up as another place on your computer, it's a data cable. If it doesn't show up, it's a power cable.
Phone has to be powered on to see that.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I
Okay.
see what you mean. You need to turn the phone on when you do that.
And
Correct.
your
Be sure
firewall
it gets through.
and your firewall in your computer has to allow that type of connection. Because if it's blocking the connection, then you're not going to see that in the computer.
So yeah, I would say if you have one cable, you can see that it's a power and data cable. Get the other cable, plug it in. If it shows up, if it plugs in and doesn't show up as power and data, then it's probably not. There's probably a data only. I mean, a power only cable. However,
Can't you look inside of the connector and see how many
no,
connectors are there?
all of the connecting, the end connections will all be there. It's the internal wires that are missing.
And as amusing as all this discussion is, and certainly amusing Joan, she does have her hand up.
Go ahead, Joan.
Yes, just 2 points, 1 question and 1 point of information. I just drove through 5 time zones. And believe me, I was protected from everything because every time I was in a different time zone, I had to either change my password or do something. It was quite the experience anyway. But anyway, that's just information. But here's my question, probably for Ross. When you buy a Bluetooth adapter, does each device have a different Bluetooth adapter?
There we go. So laptops can come with the Wi-Fi card that's built into the laptop, can have various things in it, including Bluetooth. So if you have a Bluetooth mouse or a Bluetooth headset, it may be allowed to connect to that Bluetooth inside the laptop or computer. Most of them, you're right, do come with an adapter for Bluetooth. But again, it's just Bluetooth. There's nothing unique to that. Bluetooth is not very reliable as far as I'm concerned. It sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. So I stay away from that as much as I can, and use a wired connection. It's much more reliable.
Well, here's my problem then. I do have a wireless mouse and it does have a Bluetooth adapter. And it's a new computer and there has been no way to find out if there's any other Bluetooth connection. And so I wanted to use my headphones wirelessly. And I was told that I had to buy a Bluetooth adapter for the headphones.
That's not really true. If this is Windows 10, Windows 11, 10. Okay. Well, again, if you look under the network settings, it should show you Bluetooth, and you should. Then it's not turned on.
And I tried to turn it on, and two of us tried to do that, and with no luck.
Have you talked to or emailed the customer service for that particular computer?
No, but now that you've mentioned it, maybe that's what I'll do next. Thanks, Ross.
But again, it's not an overly reliable service in general, Bluetooth. And to say you have to use an adapter from that particular company, then at that point, not just buy a generic Bluetooth adapter, I would get one from the manufacturer of the headset. And then you have to go through the pairing process, turn it on. It says, yep, you got to do 3 beeps or the lights or whatever it is it shows you there, and connect. Trying to keep those connected and working has been quite a challenge for me. I stay away from them as much as I can.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. I don't want to belabor a point, but my question is, the 5-volt adapter you plug into the wall to charge your device, does it handle data also? Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. So I guess I didn't understand Fran's question about worrying about the adapter. Okay, any other Q&A questions? I wanted to just make a comment. I ended up with a lot of emails in my Gmail account, and I was trying to get rid of a lot of the old ones. And I think it's been discussed here before, but the way I did it is go to the search bar in Gmail, put in the word before, followed by a colon, and then the date that I want all the emails prior to that date deleted. And when I did that, it would only bring up the ones before that date. Then I could hit the delete key. I'm sorry, whatever you click on to do delete, and it got rid of all of them. So that's the easy way to do it. And I guess it'd been discussed here before, but I'd neglected the colon after the word before. If you don't put the colon in there, it looks for the word before, not the action of before. Dan?
I've got a message on my screen right above your head. It says live transcription, closed capturing has been enabled. Who can see this transcript?
There should be an X at the far right end of that you could click to dismiss that.
Okay, so that's just a message from the Zoom program.
Yes, because the transcription is enabled on this session.
If you click on that question, another box comes up that says the transcript from this meeting may be saved and shared with apps and others by participants with relevant permissions based on the settings configured for this meeting.
Now, when I click on it, it says the account owner and everyone in the message can save this transcript and share with apps and others.
Fascinating.
I
Is
think
that it,
that's-
Dan?
Yeah, I think the difference is between a host and a participant.
Yep. Betcha. Willie?
Yeah, have a very specific question, and I was kind of waiting until the end in case anybody wanted to mull this over. I have a box that I rent from Spectrum. It's their modem router combined. In that box, it has 2 USB ports that you can plug in a mass storage device, whether it's a external hard drive or I use it for thumb drives. I can't access that now with Windows 11 or Windows 10, and it seems to be there's some switch inside the setup that I can't understand. And I've spent hours trying to research this and figure it out, and I can't figure it out. So anybody have any ideas, or Ross or anybody? Network discovery doesn't work. It doesn't discover what I want. So
Have you talked to the vendor of the device to see if they have something that needs to be updated for Windows 10 or 11?
well, Spectrum, the organization that I pay my money to every month, doesn't know it exists. So they just say, we don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, there's a picture. I have a manual from Technicolor. It's the company that makes it. And I have the manual for it. It's 80 pages long, and it talks all about how you can use this as a mass storage device. It's a server. It's basically a gateway server, and you can use it as a server. But Spectrum doesn't want you to do that. They're giving you this hardware saying, well, we don't know anything about that. So they were a lost cause. This was a few years ago. And I since figured it out. Now I can access, ironically, I can access it from my tablet. When I go to files on my tablet in Android, I can see those drives, and I can access the drives. I store all my spreadsheets on a thumb drive. So I can put 2 drives in there, and I get, it's an extra couple of gigabytes of space. But really, it's for organization of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't want to talk to Spectrum that sold it to you, but the manufacturer that manufactured it.
Right, that they're hard to get through to because it's a French company, number one, and if you go to their website, it's like they only work with corporate people. They say go talk to the people that gave you this box. I mean, I tried. They just say, well, Spectrum, we sell the boxes to Spectrum. They buy 10,000 of these things or 100,000 of them. Go talk to them. And I talked to Spectrum. They just say, nah. They say that they told me those ports are only used for diagnostics for technicians. It's not true. I've used it before. I've accessed it. I can see every drive in there, but now I can't. I updated it from Windows. Okay, I have Windows 11, and then I updated from 11. There was another version just came out a couple of months ago for 22. I forget, it's H22 something or other, and that's when it turned it back off to, it's like reinstalling Windows. Now I can't access it. I could access it a year ago. Now I can't. I just don't know what switch in Windows is the right one.
Maybe you need to talk to one of the Spectrum technicians that has access to those service ports or something.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I did have a guy, the last time a Spectrum guy was out here, he gave me some hints, not related to that subject, but just other ways around things. And
Yeah,
they know a
there's
lot
probably
more.
somebody
They know a
is-
lot more than the customer service department. Is to put it that way.
Perhaps Ross might want to weigh in on this.
Be my guest.
So I would not probably choose to do that on my modem. I would do that through my firewall that has a USB port on there and specifically shows that I can use that as a print server or a way to put an external drive onto my network and access it that way. I think you will be happier with the long-term results if you have that capability to plug it into your device versus trying to get the Spectrum device to do what you want. Because at any time they can update that information, change it out, or more than likely when they did that at some point, they chose and told the manufacturer of the modem to not allow that feature to work. And yes, most of those USB ports on TVs and other devices are specifically there for a technician to plug in his memory stick into and to then be able to run diagnostics, not for you to be able to plug yours in and use it for file sharing.
That's what Spectrum says. That's not what the manual says. The manual says it's a media sharing device. So you can plug in movies and you can take a movie on a thumb drive and stick it in there and run your movies to all your connected network things. But that's beside the point.
Yeah, you're kind of tilting at windmills to me, sir.
And I would
I
support
don't
what
understand
Ross,
what that comment means.
I would support what Ross said. If you want to have that capability, go out and buy your own router and with USB ports, and you are in control of it as opposed to Spectrum, and put it on your network and you'll be able to do what you want.
I understand that's probably the best solution. I would like to get rid of, remember, I rent this thing from them. And the reason why I rented it 3, 4, or 5 years ago when I had the service put in was because they said they would upgrade it with time, but they've never touched it in 3 years. And every time I call them, they say, nope, you're up to date. I mean, it's got the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz bands, and it's 300 megabits per second. So I can't argue with them. They keep saying, oh, we're up to date with it, but it was just a sideline thing. That's why it was the end.
Well, you're
Yeah.
paying probably $120 a year for it, so you could probably buy your own cheaper, or for the same
I don't pay that much for the router. I pay
$10.
$12
They were
a
charging me
month.
$10 a month for my.
Yeah, per year. You're right.
Yeah.
Again, I was thinking 4 years ago that they would update it every year or so, and they haven't.
I think we are about to postpone our discussions until next week.
I guess Stan doesn't have his hand up. He went out for. Oh, he does have. Dan has his hand up. Dan.
Yes, we're speaking about customer support with Spectrum. I have my story about customer support with TracFone. Because I went through about 5 different customer support people and had a message on my phone that it wouldn't work because it wouldn't do VoIP. And they kept saying, well, we'll send you a text message. I said, my phone doesn't work. We'll send you a text message. Read it back to us. I said, doesn't work, I can't see it. So finally I got about the 5th guy I got on the phone. He said the same thing. And when I told him that, he said, all right, I'll send you a new phone. So I did get a new phone eventually, but I went through a lot of confusion and a lot of customer support people before I finally got it.
Dan, I use a TracFone also, but I haven't seen any problem with it. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place.
Did you try to make a phone call with it?
Yeah, it works.
Okay. Well, you probably have a phone with VoIP on it.
What are those characters again?
VoIP.
Oh,
Voice
VoIP.
over
Over
internet protocol.
Okay, I understand.
Mine did not have that capability. So that's what his problem was.
Well,
And
doesn't
now
don't
I
you
have a
go-
new one.
don't you go through a satellite?
I don't know how they do that.
No, you go to a tower. All the cell phone calls go through towers unless you
okay.
have a satellite phone.
But you need VoIP to go through a tower?
It depends on the phone provider and the phone as what they have. My guess is that Dan has an older phone than yours does, and you have, and your service now continues to work. Over time, you have to buy new things. They discontinue. I started with cell phones back when we had analog cell phones, and they switched to digital. Too bad. You got to buy a digital phone now. The old one's worth nothing. The same way when they had the OnStar in the GM products, they discontinued that because they changed the service available and no longer supported the old self-services in the old cars. There was no way to upgrade that. You had to buy a new one. And they're in control of that. You can say, I'm going to say and not do it because I don't want to, but you're going to have problems.
If I could just offer a tip to Dan and anybody else who gets into a situation like that, if you're not aware of this, text messages can be sent to an email address. You just put it in where the phone number would be in the field. And so TrackPhone could have sent Dan an email and put the code in it that he had to verify instead of trying to send him a text message.
The text message did get to my phone after about a half an hour, but it was only good for 10 minutes. So by the time it got there, it was too late for anything anyway. But anyhow, he'd already promised me a new phone, and they did deliver a new phone. I just don't have it set up yet.
If you happen to be in a situation where cell service is very spotty and you're having trouble, some kind of a disaster has happened, your text messaging service is much more robust, and messages will go through. Yes, they can take a while longer, but they will continue to try to get that message through. Where on a phone call, once it's dropped, it's dropped. It does not try to continue. So if you're really trying to get a hold of somebody and you're, again, having trouble with the cell phone service, try a text message.
Sharon?
Yes, hi, thank you. I have a question. If on my screen sharing right now, not on my screen sharing, but on my ID here, my profile, if I change on this particular on this particular Zoom meeting, if I change my name and add my device, because I'm seeing a lot of you have your devices afterwards, like Windows or whatever, if I want to put that in there, does that mean every time I go to another webinar with a different company that's going to be there? Or is it only
No.
as I rename it?
No.
Depends how you do it. If you do it within the session, it probably just lasts for that session. If you do it
Okay.
as you log in, then that'll probably stick between logins.
Okay, great. So I can rename myself right now here and just put Mac in. Gotcha. Because I wasn't sure on how that would work, whether that would carry over to my future ones.
Your mileage may vary. It's up to Zoom.
Okay, and then the last question is, the last feedback is APCUG. Couldn't you use your name instead? It would be helpful for new people.
Hank, I did encourage him to change it on the direct message in the chat. Apparently he didn't look at it, but he normally does put his own name on there. He got kicked out of the meeting, and every time he comes back, it puts that old name in because it's the account that we're using to host this Zoom session.
Okay, because it's awkward to say, hey, APUG or whatever it is. Thank you.
Before we leave, we have a participant by the name of Ardell. Ardell, I don't recognize that you've been with us before. Can you hear us?
I expect they can hear us or they wouldn't still be here, Will.
Yeah. Ardell, can you unmute and tell us about yourself?
They might have a challenge doing that. It depends on their device.
Or put something in the chat if that's easier.
Yeah. Is it true, Saul, that someone can hear you just because you can see their name and face?
If their speakers are on and they're joined in a Zoom meeting, they can hear you.
But their speakers may not be turned on. Yeah. Okay.
Why would they be here if the speakers were off, Will?
Don't know. All things are possible, Saul. Okay, folks. Is Hank still on? I guess. Yeah, he's on another phone call. If nothing else, I guess, Saul, you're the co-host.
Yeah, but it's up to Hank if he wants to leave the meeting open or just end it. It's up to him. So give him a moment to get off the phone and he'll get back to us. In the meantime, you can chat among yourself.
Does anyone know what's on the schedule for next week?
No. Wait a minute, can you hear me? Yes, I am not muted. Hold on a minute. Let me just look. I think I am I don't think I've got my act together.
Think he just got frozen again. He'll be back.
Uh,
Stan, your microphone is muted.
I just want, okay. Anyway, I want to thank you all for being here. I think we're doing very good. We got, with 17 now, it was up to 22 people. I think that bodes well for holding these meetings this way. So keep coming back, folks. And glad to have you. And remember, we could use your support by joining up at the website, as Hank is oft inclined to mention. So welcome, glad you're here.
Okay, I gather that while I was taking a rather important phone call, we got ready to be unready and go to next week. There is nothing scheduled for next week, but I have two things in mind. One is a dissertation by me on the subject of what is the cloud and where is the cloud. People have asked that several times, and I've tried, but haven't satisfied everybody's curiosity yet. So I might try that one. And the other one is the something GPT.
Chat.
Found some
GPT.
interesting videos on. It'll be one of those two. So see you next week, and aloha.
Hank,
And
Hank, could you leave the meeting open a moment? I was going to answer a question that's in the chat.
I will. Saul will be, well, wait a minute, maybe that's David just said that?
No, I did. Saul, here.
Saul did.
Yes.
Okay. You are now the host.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saul, for your time.
Okay, so let me go back.
I wasn't clear about the text versus email. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I do not have an iPhone. I do not have a cell phone. I only have a landline, but I have other devices, iPads, iPods, and Mac. So how can someone send me a text with an email instead of if I don't have a text?
So the way it can work is that if somebody does have a cell phone that can send text messages, when they
Right.
fill out to do a text message, often they're pulling a contact from their list of contacts in the cell phone. But if
Okay.
you wanted to send, if they wanted to send a text message to somebody who is not in their contacts, just like you'd want to make a telephone call, you dial the phone number, right?
Right, right.
They would put in your phone number and it would go to your cell phone normally as a text message. But if you don't have a text, if you don't have a cell phone, or for whatever reason it's not working or something, in that field where the phone number would be input by that person sending it to you, they could simply put in your email address.
Had
And
no idea.
their cell phone service provider will convert the text message into an
Wow.
email message and send it to you. And that also works in the other direction, is that if you don't have a cell phone or can't do a text message yourself, you can send an email to a person for their cell phone, but you have to know who their provider is because it's a different domain name for each cell phone provider, and it gets included with their cell phone number, and your brief, I want to emphasize, email will be converted into a text message and arrive in that form to them on their cell phone.
Okay, because that is useful for me because I was thinking about joining CVS Pharmacy for deliveries, but the only way they notify you that you have a delivery is via text. And so then I could say, just put my email address in there and then it would arrive. Thank you. I had no clue that existed.
Most people don't know.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
I didn't know that either. Thank you.
Mhm.